Hello, I'm here at Salvation Studios, one of my favourite studios. With this beautiful console behind me. Look at Russell. Oh, he's off.
You can't look at me.
No, can't look at Russell.
Couldn't have expected.
Well, I think it's just kind of always around music, like at home, like when my mum played the piano and we kind of learnt the piano from when I was really young. And then when I got to school, there was a friend of my brother's actually, who's in a band called Circa Waves now, but he was a bassist. And I saw him just like absolutely slapping this bass, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So I was like, right, I've got to try and do that. So I just fell in love with playing bass to start off with.
Yeah.
And then through that, a friend's dad had an old 4-track Porter studio that we tried to record stuff on, and just everything was just in mono. Didn't know about stereo at that point. And yeah, just kind of caught the bug. And I suppose, like, especially when I was at school, music was just like a real kind of sanctuary for me. I was like, what I did every lunchtime and after school, just like trying to just get into it, because there wasn't that much going on where I grew up. But I think it's when I got to uni and met some just amazingly talented musicians and engineers and producers, and we were all kind of like rising up at the same time. And I think, yeah, it was something that I felt that I could just like focus on and completely dedicate myself to. And it, you know, we all listen to music and get that emotional response that not really anything else can do. I think it's really magic. And I think when I was really young, I just loved that you could create that in people and you could spread that. I've never looked back since. I think really the first time that I felt like I could actually do this, because, you know, it was always a dream, but I felt like I could actually make a go of this as like a career, was when I was working at Monnow Valley Studios in Wales. And there was just some incredible producers and engineers coming through, and we had like an 8068 Neve console there for a lot of the time. And it was just like a real kind of boot camp, like really cutting teeth. But seeing how, you know, the producers from, because it was a rock and roll studio really, it was producers from that era, how they would approach recording drums, how they would communicate with the artists to get the best performance out of them, all the technical aspects, and yeah, kind of taking on a little bit of responsibility for that, and starting to have ideas. And it's like, I think I could actually contribute something, because yeah, before that, having a career doing something that you love is something that doesn't really happen. It was just a pipe dream, but this was like ignited that fire of like, right, I'm gonna do this. You know, there's no turning back.
Well, it's amazing to have had that back, you know, to just have had that opportunity down at Monnow Valley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously a legendary place, you know.
Yeah. I think that was absolutely godsend. Just out of uni, through a friend that I knew that there was a position there, and I worked underneath Liam, who was the engineer there for a while before taking over from him, and it was just a really special place for sure. Well, yeah, loads of people. I think people that really stood out to me, or I remember just getting really inspired by, there was Leo Abrahams, who was working with the editors, and just the way that he approached it was this moving composition the whole time, and he just had all these incredible ideas, and they were kind of like quite left field, and I was like, this is off the beaten path, this is really exciting. But Gil Norton came in, who was obviously like a massive hero. And yeah, it was especially the way that he approached vocals, which I try to emulate, nowhere near as well, but just like his approach and how he locks in with the artist, and everybody out is just kind of you and them trying to get the best performance out of them.
Yes.
And yeah, Ken Nelson, who I ended up doing a bit more work with, who did the early Coldplay stuff, but yeah, his kind of approach to not really using much EQ, just going back to mic placement to try and get the best sounds, and his amazing engineer Tom at that time. So really just like not having to mess around with things too much after the fact. If something isn't right, just move a microphone, change the instrument. You know, it's all about that source.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, so you can do so much, but if it's not right in the first instance, then you're already working against yourself.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, those are three just off the top of my head, but there was tons of amazing people. I'd say it was all preparation. Like, know all your parts inside out. I mean, if it's your first time in the studio, then you probably maybe don't have the luxury of being able to use the studio as an instrument quite so much. Like, you just have to. You're probably going to be in there for a shorter amount of time, and it doesn't matter what equipment you have. I mean, very, very lucky here with what we have. But if the performances aren't right and not everybody's not comfortable, then I mean that's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a good record. So I mean, a lot of the work that makes something great is in the pre-production, if I was to be involved in that. But pre-production is rehearsal, really.
Yes.
And working out all the parts and thinking about, you know, a large amount of a mix is the composition, is the structure. So if you get that right in the rehearsal room, then that makes way down the line the mix and master so much easier, because you've not got instruments fighting with each other. You've got things working in concert rhythmically with each other. So I'd say, but that's all pre-studio stuff. But I think when you're in the studio, just do what you can to try and make it a comfortable environment for you. If you know each other, if you've got a band member who's a little bit more nervous, got a band member who's a big mouth, if you've got something that can kind of tie you together and kind of make it feel like a home away from home a little bit. That could be like bring some stuff along. It's bringing obviously your own equipment that you're happy with and know inside out. And then we have options somewhere like this to be able to, experiment with. But it's all about, trying to make it that home away from home, really. Well, I think aside from the clear, amazing array of equipment and stuff, which makes me excited when I come in here. Just the overall vibe of the space with the lighting, and there's a cavernous space, and it's amazing to be able to record in a space like that because you have so many options acoustically. But when we have the option of having a whole band playing in that room. And you've got the light coming through the stained glass window, and it's at night, and it's kind of real deep and dark and mysterious, or very, very bright and uplifting. We've got all of those options. I think the atmosphere just kind of leads to creativity. I mean, from my end, having these options, having the option of storing amps and things downstairs all over the shop, and being able to reamp stuff into the room. A lot of people record stuff in the box. So getting synths and programs, elements like out into a real space, I think just adds so much to a recording. Especially if you're using like a live band and you want something which otherwise would just be inside your head and the band kind of playing in front of you. So you're having it feel like those instruments are real acoustic forces in that room. And this room's incredible for that. Let's say it starts with just a conversation and trying to get an idea of the palette of sounds that we want to use, and then I think it's really important to have a kind of consistent vision of like the aesthetic that you want to create, because that will inform every decision that you make along the way. So, I mean, you listen to a record and you think of all the processes going in there. There's like this Byzantine network of different decisions that could have gone one way or the other. And I think when you're at that early stage, it looks like that final stage is like so far away, and it's so complex, but all of that is just built on these little steps that if you come together with like a clear image of how like the aesthetic you want to create, then all those decisions will be kind of slightly skewed in that way. So when I'm working with a new artist, then you just have that conversation about, things that are inspiring this music. That can be like an aesthetic from film, or a particular period of time, or a particular way that they're feeling, or a colour, or whatever. you can get really, really ethereal with it if you want. But I think that's like the good starting point. And then once we get that palette of sounds together, then that informs all the rest, I think. I think it's, especially important when working with like brand new artists at the beginning of their career, and they're still searching around for their signature sound. And at that point, there's so much possibility to play and experiment. And like we're both like breaking new ground. Like I can be trying things I've never tried before because there's no of these like preconceptions, and something's not quite fully formed yet. So that lets you experiment just so much more. And it's like the real coalface of like music happening now. I think that's really, really important. It's just like capturing this particular time. So I mean, there's a lot of people that reference back that are very, very referential with their music, and I feel like trying to capture something that's happening at this particular moment is really important. Well, I think when people come into a space like this, it's kind of important to make it an atmosphere where people feel like they can play and experiment and be creative, and that is part of my job, is making people feel comfortable that, you know, if they're going to come up with an idea that might be a little bit out there, then they're not going to be shot down, and you know, that can be, you know, trying to generate kind of support for each other within the band, try and like assess any sort of like tensions or anything, and just like make it a place where no one's afraid to like push something, because that can often lead to some really exciting stuff. But as far as like the general vibe, then obviously the light and the way that things are sounding, people's monitoring is really important. So somewhere like here with the ability to, you know, change all the lighting and kind of try and match it to the style of music that you're working with, I think is a really useful tool as a producer. And like great headphone monitoring. I mean, if someone can't hear what they're doing, or if they're feeling like their mix isn't quite right, then that massively affects everything. So I mean, just having the tools available for you is very important. I want to, just try and keep that essence of just play and experimentation, really. Well, I think for me the main kind of selling point of this place is the live room and the amazing array of backline. I mean, there's so many options acoustically in that space. You've got incredibly dead areas. You've got, you know, it's massive cavernous room, and especially for drums, having the option of just having some really, really tight and dry and dusty to, you know, massive rock drums is amazing. And, you know, as I've said before about kind of reamping stuff out into the space, it's just a really useful tool. The gear is incredible, that like up there with many other studios, like well maintained, and especially, I mean, I absolutely love working on this console. It's like probably my favorite console to work on. It's similar one to what we had at Monnow Valley, the Neve 8068. I think this one's a little bit older than that, but it's just a joy to work on it. The workflow that it introduces, I think, really resonates with me. I think, as I've said before, it's about like going back to mic placement. The EQ is really musical and less just like precise, and that really resonates with me. I think the routing options that we have on here, I mean, there's a bunch of spaces around where you can just send things through to amps, and I really like live putting stuff down and just being able to send stuff like post EQ into different spaces. I think that's a really nice part of the workflow you can have with this. I think the 31102 is like one of my favourite preamp modules in EQs. I think for me it's Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips. I think at the time that I listened to it, and I was already a big fan of Dave Fridman, who produced that. I mean, he also mixed the MGMT stuff, early Tame Impala, and like that as a sonic world, and also just the fun. Like I can just stick it on every time, and I can just lose myself in it. And it's like one of those that I just keep on going back to because it's like a comfortable, warm hug, and like a world in and of itself. I mean, if I could ever make something which sounded like that, I mean, I'd be a happy man. Oh, that's a tough one. So like first singles were probably Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz or Heaven is a Half Pipe by OPM. First record that I bought would have been Sum 41, All Killer No Filler, which I think still sounds up. The pop punk has come back with a resurgence. Oh wait, I actually need to think about this. I think for me it would be Jeff Buckley. I think he was just taken far too before his time, and like just from what that happened on that first album, how moving it is, like his voice, amazing. I feel like if we'd had a whole career worth, I'm sad for what we lost there, really. Oh, that's it. Potentially embarrassingly, but I remember going with my parents when I was 8 to go and see S Club 7. Had a great time. There was glow sticks, everything. It was brilliant. First concert that I actually got a ticket for was Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was on their Stadium Arcadium tour, which was amazing. I was a massive fan of Flea, being a bassist, and I just thought that his just like absolutely balls to the wall playing, even being in the same place as that, I was like not worthy. But yeah, I remember that really fondly. Well, thanks so much for having me. I mean, it's always a pleasure being here, and I'm looking forward to working here a lot more in the future.